G'day everyone, welcome to Get Lost with a Travel Guide. My name is Ben and we've got a long-term friend of mine. We go back all the way to 2011. We've got a guy called Chris who is a well-travelled member of the travel community. I'm going to throw it to you, Chris. Why are we going to be having a chat? I mean, I've contacted you clearly about one of the countries I've been to about 3 or 4 times called Croatia. I've only been there 3 or 4 times. How long have you been there? What can you tell me about Croatia and why are you my go-to man about the country?
Yeah. Hey, Benny, how are you, mate? Look, I've been to Croatia. More stamps in my passport say Croatia than they do Australia. It's just been in and out of that country, on and off a billion times since 2006, I would say. And that was my first time back there, and that I visited there and just fell in love with it. And I've just seen it evolve over the last 15, 16 years with my own travels, and then working as a tour guide, and then started my own sailing company in Croatia now. So the last.
When you say you're a tour guide, what type of? I mean, people think tour guide, they think maybe doing like a walking tour or something. What can you elaborate on specific? I think it's a bit more than tour guide.
Yeah, it's true. Sometimes people think, just day trips, and like, no. I'm living and breathing and telling stories all week. Back when I met you, I was doing tours, up to 45 days with the one group. You don't do 45 days on the water in Croatia and with one group. You do 7 days, which is just the perfect amount of time to be with the group, I think. So as a tour guide in Croatia, I'm doing Saturday to Saturday trips and just going up and down that coast and swimming all day, telling stories.
So you're just living the dream. You're not even working is what you're really saying.
Yeah, well, they say love what you do and never work a day in your life. And I feel like I haven't worked for about 12 years. So, it was a dream job that I somehow made it into my lifestyle. And I'm pretty lucky dude, I reckon. Yeah.
And if anyone is listening to this, flick over to YouTube because you got the logo of what you've started on your shirt right there, Koda Sail.
Yeah.
So when did it kick off? When did it first start? When did you think, you know what, Croatia, that's the place to be?
Look, honestly, that first trip back in 2006 was just a trip with some friends. We heard some murmurs about this magical place called Croatia. Got to get there, and it was a bit of a boys' trip, and we did the, Greek islands, Amsterdam, Barcelona, and we thought we'll chuck in this Croatia part, and we'll see what that's all about. And as soon as we got there, we were just like, this is different, but really familiar. It was quite cheap back then as well. Like beers cost nothing. The 2006 soccer World Cup was on, which was a bonus, and the place was alive. So, one of my fondest memories there is watching the World Cup final in Hvar in the main square, and I refer back to that every time I'm there, just telling my group how different it was then to it is now. And
what has changed? So it's 2006. Presumably you haven't been there recently because of COVID, but. You said like the last 15 odd years. What has been the evolution of Croatia in that period?
Just tourism has gone nuts. And I think one of the biggest things that I remember that's changed most is back in 2006 when we went there, English wasn't widely spoken. So we felt really, out there. Like, oh, wow, this is Eastern Europe, and no one understands what we're talking about. Tourism was new, and I think that's what I've been most proudest of seeing over the years, that as tourism grew, they knew that it can be a pretty impressive industry to jump into, and especially the younger population just like practice and practice and practice. And now in 2000, and the last time I was there is 2019, so I've been on a bit of a break with COVID, but the English is amazing. I would say they're probably one of the best English-speaking countries in Europe.
Wow, I
And
never would have picked that. I mean, I've spent a lot of time in Europe myself, and there's always like your go-tos, like Netherlands or Scandinavian countries. Which is that right? Was it on par with them, or maybe like a French,
look,
German, Italian?
I say this in the tourist
touristy?
areas.
Yep.
So I'm thinking, you go further over the hills and into the country a little bit more. Probably the older population, not so much, but definitely, anyone under 35 is, pretty well versed in English, which is, impressive. And a lot of the population, I'm there in the summers, so a lot of the population move to the coast to get that summer job and work in tourism. And English equals the dollars, and I think it's they're a very hardworking nation and very smart go-getters. So I think they would have just went, yep, I've got to know how to speak English. I've got to do it well, and then I can get a summer job. So,
well, you probably might know some of the history. I think because there was a war, there was a lot of conflict in there. I think the 90s, early 90s, late 80s, around that like Cold War, Berlin Wall type era. But I wonder if that's related. I wonder if that's the reason why people are go-getting. They've had it really tough. It's like, well, here's opportunity to move forward.
Oh, yeah, they're pretty resilient bunch. Even with all this COVID stuff, I'm here in Melbourne, based in Melbourne, and, we've taken a way different approach to COVID here in Australia than those over in Europe. And even in Croatia, I'm chatting to my second family over there all the time. And
actually, can we deep dive in that bit, because with COVID, I mean, we can Google what is the case in Australia and follow restrictions. I mean, there's one thing, like there is like black and white sort of, or sometimes not black and white, bit of a grey area what we got to follow. But how is it being managed? Like, I mean, because if you're running all these trips and tours into Croatia, it's probably something. Have you been monitoring that quite regularly to find out what restrictions, like how is Croatia managing it?
There's it's a little bit mixed, and this is why we didn't go there this year. We just weren't 100% on how things were looking, and just way too many restrictions to run a 7-day tour that drops into a different local town every day. So things are looking a lot stronger after this summer. There was only a few companies, locals companies that were running, very minimal tourist numbers, but it was a good practice run for what's going to happen next year, which they've set themselves up pretty well from all my chats, with PCR testing at the ports.
So there is a bit of momentum. There is certainly light. Like because I think the numbers of tourists arriving in Croatia. Hang on, I think from memory, I think for Europe or even the world, I think Paris gets the number one. London's I think Croatia's up there. I think it's a top 10 in the world or definitely in Europe.
Yeah, I mean easily top 10. People don't go to Europe without a trip to Croatia now. Which 2006 that was a rarity. The sailing trips weren't even a thing back in 2006. Well, they were just starting, but they were on the old fishing boats. So, yeah, it is a well-visited country, and tourism is one of their biggest industries. So it's important for them to work it out, know what's going on. Their vaccination rate is rising. They're going into winter, as the rest of Europe are, and they've got to get their act into gear, all of them, all of Europe, I think, to make sure those vaccination rates keep on going up to get through the winter, which will set them up for the summer. So I think, as it happened here in Australia as well, as you come into summer, COVID kind of exists less and people are getting out.
Yeah, it's like the flu. It always, people's immune system and things like that sort of affected by the seasons. So, just curious, because it sounds like Croatia is going to be alive. It's going to be kicking. It's probably not today, but in the distant, not too distant future. So, would you be able to share some insight about Croatia? Firstly, can you tell me something you've learned the hard way about Croatia when you've travelled there yourself? You think, shit, I made a bit of a mistake here, and you learned a valuable lesson about the country. Something that you might have. This might have been dating back when you first got there.
Yeah, do you know what? Actually, being an Aussie, this is something I teach my my passengers as well. Being an Aussie, and you can see me right now, I have a permanent smile on my face. You know, it's like, hi, smile, trust me. That's kind of, you know, our thing. It's like, g'day, how you going? Oh, he's an Aussie. You know, always smiling. They're friendly people. And first thing you get off the plane and you go into customs and oh hi, yeah, and real straight face, and you're just like, all right, I'm packing my dacks now. Like, you know, they're staring up being at customs, but this lady here is going to like, I don't know, no smile.
What's a lesson? Not smile at people.
No, no. Yeah, well, no, and then you know, as you get on through, you know, very straight faced, but over 15 years, I've really got to know the locals, and you know, they know that I'm the Aussie that they're smiling, and you know, I've asked them, you know, why, how can I explain this to my guests? Why you guys, you know, don't smile or very straight face? And it's like, in their tradition or in their culture, anyone that's smiling is cheeky and kind of up to something. You know, like, what's the reason to just smile for no reason? Like, you're actually a crazy person. And I thought, that's actually a really, really good explanation. Like, I don't know you from a bar of soap, but I'm smiling and like making a funny face, and it's like, what's wrong with that person? That person is crazy. They must be up to something. So I think when it was explained to me like that, I was like, okay, this makes sense as to why they're just so straight-faced. And, you know, they've gone through war and all that, you know, recent history. So there's no real big reason to be.
That's interesting.
Yeah.
So something you can advise, it's almost like maybe a challenge you could set for your passengers.
Oh, yeah.
Like, hey,
and that's what I used to do.
That person, see if they can smile back. Because it's infectious.
Like, you know, because it's one of the first things, like, I go, oh, how'd you go today, guys? And they're like, oh, the people were a bit rude. And I said, were they rude or they just didn't smile at you? You know, were they rude to you? Oh, no, they were just like straight faced and all that. And I was like, yeah, no emotion. Yeah, that's kind of not just Croatia. I'd say a lot of the Eastern Europeans is just like, I'm happy, you know.
Mate, I got a few more golden nuggets of questions here. I'd love to learn a bit more about Croatia. Like I said, I didn't know that, and I've bloody been there a few times, but I just must have been bloody hungover every day, didn't even notice. But, mate, Croatia, like I said, haven't really done my homework there despite being there a few times. But what would you say is its best kept secret? People don't know about this that well. It's not popular, but you got to do it.
Well, I would have said sailing a few years ago, like maybe 8 years ago. But every Tom, Dick and Harry and their goat knows about sailing now.
Well, it's it's good coastline. I mean, I guess that's secret. I mean, I think it's got like a beautiful mountain range. It flows on to towards Austria, like Slovenia, which is stunning country. It's like Sound of Music type territory. But the coastline, I mean, tell me about the coastline if the secret's out.
Yeah, look, that water there, you can't beat it. I think the one thing about Europe that's different from Australia is there's no real sand and doesn't murky up the waters, and you're looking down good 20 metres and you're seeing fish at the bottom. But I'm thinking a good secret, but you know it's a little bit on the touristy trail. But the lakes, the Plitvice lakes that are up in the north.
Yes,
so it's a big recommendation. After my tours, I tell people get up there and check those lakes out. And I've been twice.
How do you bloody pronounce that? Because I remember I've written it down 100 times, and I Plitvice. How the hell do you? It's the biggest tongue twister.
Plitvice. So
anyone write that down? Good luck.
Yeah, Plitvice. So if someone Aussie comes up to me, hey, can I get to those Plitvice lakes? I know what they're talking about.
Gotcha.
But, and look, I've been back for a couple of years, so my pronunciation gets a little bit Aussie, I guess. But I say Plitvice lakes.
You're a local.
Look, that's enough for people to know that I'm not butchering it too much. But yeah.
So that's the place.
Those like
so that's the place to be.
You've got to put that up on your trip. Yeah, and a little bit of a road trip. I think as much as I love to tell you to do the sailing, if you got some time, like just hiring a car for 3 or 4 days and going in the north part where the sailing isn't accessible, and that gets you up to those lakes, and also the Kirka waterfalls, and the waterfalls there are beautiful. So KRKA, if you want to Google that while we're doing that, so KRKA. You can check them out, and they're another great thing. So the national parks are awesome, and we go to
sail it and head north to the mountains. So they're your sort of your go-tos.
Yeah. So the national parks are best in Europe, at least I'd say, but some of the best in the world. Yeah.
I'll second that. I didn't know anything about Plitvice Lakes at all, however everybody pronounce it. I turned up and I absolutely just foamed at the mouth with excitement because I love national parks, I love waterfalls, like I love the Australian outback and like the Great Dividing Range of like the the Southern Highlands, rural parts of New South Wales. I love that. And then I went to Plitvice Lakes and I just, it's like Peter Pan, like sort of Never Land. That's my. Other people go there like, not too excited, but I'm for it, mate.
If you're listening
I went there twice.
If you haven't Googled it just yet, we're not just talking about one lake. I'm pretty certain there's 8 lakes, and they kind of all flow into each other. And I just Google image it, and then
you can imagine like Tinkerbell coming out of nowhere, and like it's something from this. It's fairy tale land, or you might think it's in Hawaii or something, but no, it's Croatia.
This is on my bucket list to do it in the winter. I've seen photos of that with snow, and parts of it even frozen, and they've got small bears that come out in there.
What?
So I've only seen photos. Yeah, no, they got bears.
This isn't one of those Bigfoot stories like the Loch Ness Monster. They're not making this up.
Coins, there is a bear on one of the coins. But,
wow. Okay. Yeah. Well, moving on. What do you reckon is the biggest mistake tourists make every time they go to Croatia? Something they didn't do, maybe a bit of a boo-boo.
Oh, yeah, look, there's some fun like activities to do, outside of the touristy stuff. So I would say, and maybe I'm being a bit biased, but I've been there so many times that I work these things into our tours to make sure that people get that opportunity. But one of the best things I've done, and why I've added it to my tours, and they were never on my tours when I used to work with someone else, is zip lining. They do zip lining out of Omish in between the mountain range, the Biokovo mountain range there, and that doesn't disappoint. I done it so many times.
So that's a mistake.
Mistake by not doing.
Gotcha. So they get a bit of FOMO. Gotcha. That makes sense.
Or I put that around for you. A mistake by not doing the things that are outside the square a little bit. So going off the tourist trail a little bit.
All right. So if you think that question was a bit of an interesting one, I got a good one. So
I did a very tour guidey thing. I kind of just flipped that around. And,
I know, it was well done.
I gave you an answer that I was confident in giving you.
All right. Well, this one's a bit out there for me. If you do they have presidents or prime minister like in Croatia? I don't know. Like, suppose they got the president or whatever that equivalent is, the owner of the big dog of the country. Suppose, just imagine for a moment that you were the top dog, you were the president of Croatia, and you've got 10 billion euros to. No, they don't have euros, do they? Whatever it is, you got 10 billion euros to spend to make a change, to make a difference, to fix something, to eliminate something, to what. Given your experience that you got, if you're like, oh man, I wish Croatia could have just change this, what would you do? What would you spin it on? Improve Croatia somehow for the better parts of the world to visit and have the better overall experience.
Benny, why this is a hard question. Because I've been there for so long and I had the answer to this a billion times over. But there's something about, I feel like I'm almost Croatian in a way where they have a saying called "nema problema." Well, it basically means no problem. And every time I have one of these genius suggestions, like, well, why don't they have larger ports at the, at the ports? Like, why don't they have a better setup instead of we have 10 boats all tied up to each other? It works. It's okay. And okay. And I get the question every week from my groups. I'm like, you know what? It works, so I don't change it. So I would say that I've had this answer. If it was straight after a season, I'd probably be able to answer this a lot easier. But it's been, to be fair, 2 years since I've gone to that beautiful country. But
I guess, if it ain't broke, sort of don't fix it. Is perhaps their sort of mindset.
In your case, things that are broke. But that's what I love about the country is. Mate, when I come home to Australia, I feel quite tightly wound. Like, what's going on here? I've just had a good 12, 14 weeks in Croatia. I'm just totally chilled because I don't sweat the small stuff. And, this is probably what holds the country back a little bit in some ways, but also why people go there,
Well, I mean, that's an interesting perspective you got there because you've just spent months on end in Croatia with, I think, to my knowledge, from my own experience, arguably one of the most beautiful countries in the world, but it's also the standard of living and quality of life isn't as high as, say, Australia is. So if I were to spend months on end in Croatia, you think, well, you sort of someone appreciate it, but maybe that could be the answer. So if you had billions of dollars, you might lift up the overall, living conditions of the country. In this case, maybe the infrastructure of the boats, but it might rob that experience at the same time. So,
and this is me bringing, what I'm used to in Australia to there, and it's like, well, this is not why we go to those countries because, like their roads are a little bit. Not the best, but their traffic is high. So, I would love to fix their traffic because, when I'm waiting for a shuttle bus that's supposed to come at 12, it might come at 12:45. And, everyone else is all angry about it, but I'm just like, never problema. Like, you've got to kind of plan for that stuff. But if everything was on time, we'd be in Switzerland. So it's, and that's not what makes that country so interesting and fun for me. So it's a funny one being a foreigner running trips because, as you would know, going through Greece and Italy as well, like you want things to be on time, but they never are. You've just got to do a 7-hour window. You got to
embrace that imperfection. If I guess you hit the nail on the head like that. If you come from it like Australia, very high standards of living, as with Switzerland, things will run like clockwork for the most part. But when you go to more like off the beaten track, not higher as what we've been living in standard of living, you got to embrace that. You got to embrace those imperfections. Like this case, you tie up 10 boats at the same time. Like, well, no problemo. It's not problem. We're just going to walk over it. But I love the natural beauty there. If you do get a chance, anyone's listening, especially when COVID, I think there is a little bit of momentum in Croatia at the moment. You might be able to get there. At the moment, I think their borders are open.
They're on the green list for most countries. They're on the green list, which is great.
Mate, I just got one more thing. I'd love to be able to wrap this up, and I'll love to wrap things up on a bit of a smile, a bit of a high note. In addition for your Croatia sailing trips, which has been around for quite some time, like I said, you've been guiding Europe. That's where I've met you way back in 2011. So it scares me to think how many trips you've actually done. And a very common question I get asked and men tour leaders ask, you got some stories. You've got some, and we all do. Now, how deep are you willing to go on one of your funny stories? I mean, could be something impactful. Could be we've all got our own individual stories, but do you have anything you'd love to share?
Look, so it was 2011, so 10 years, minus a bit of COVID time in there. I think I've done about 150 or so tours, and you meet a lot of great people along the way.
Can you just say that again? Sorry. I just want to clarify. How many trips have you done? About?
Easily. It'd be up and around the 150s. And keep in mind, I do seven-day tours. So that's really just pumped it up towards the end. But at the start of my career, we were doing 21, 35, 40-day tours. You can't do too many of them in a year. But, the 1 week tours, really, really got on.
It's a long time.
And you meet awesome people along the way, and including yourself. And if I had to tell a story, it's funny. People think, do you remember all your tours? And for the most part, it is a bit of a blur, but there are parts that come back to me. And one that I'm thinking in particular, and it's because I'm looking at your face, is the tour that I met you on. And I'm not sure if you remember this, but I was running a tour for gap year students. And they were, you remember?
Yep.
And it was interesting because they were all 18 from either Sydney or Auckland, I think. And a lot of them were from private schools with their rugby team. So you can imagine there was these 18-year-old Shreks, basically. They were just big dudes. And, I ran into your group, and you had this lovely bunch of mixed age people. And
I felt sorry for you, mate. I really did.
Yeah, I was in Corfu, so I think I was probably 20 days deep of a 32-day tour by the time I met you for the first time, and it was so great to see someone my own age, or close to my own age, first of all, because I've been around these 18-year-olds, and I needed just someone normal to vent with, because what you can imagine 18-year-olds get up to on a 32-day camping trip around Europe, forget it. Times it by 100, and these guys were it. And I'm pretty sure these guys could write a book about the stuff that I didn't know about. But some of them drinking for the first time, so they just thought it was quite amazing. That beer was like a couple of dollars, bottles of wine through the wine regions of France.
So it's kind of like Gold Coast Schoolies right now, but you're stuck with them the entire time. So the
Gold Coast Schoolies, except kind of exotic for 32 days, but not exotic because we were camping. But we were going through Spain, France, Italy. We went through Croatia. We, overnight boats through through Greece and Germany, and we finished in Amsterdam. So everything you can imagine. But a funny little story. This is not too out there or anything that I can share. These guys, they would always ask me, do we have to wear shoes? And I'm like, what are you talking about? And the Kiwis in particular, they're so used to not wearing shoes at home. I didn't, since then, a lot of Kiwis told me, yeah, that's a thing. You just, sports days at school, we don't wear shoes. A lot of people just don't wear shoes. I'm like, that's a Kiwi thing. That's pretty cool. It's very laid back. And so they would ask me, Chris, do we have to wear shoes today? And I'm like, we're in Rome. It's 40 degrees. Yes, you need to wear shoes today. Why wouldn't you wear shoes today?
Have you seen the streets of Rome? It's cobblestones.
30, hot. Anyway, I start off our day in Rome. They get a full couple of days in Rome, but to introduce them into Rome, we're driving in. I've had the question, do I have to wear shoes? I'm like, yes. And then we get in, and I do a 2-hour walking tour to show them all the highlights of Rome. I walk them through the quite a small city, to be honest. And then we finish off at the Colosseum. And then at that point, guys, have a great day. I'll see you back at the campsite later on, and whatever, have dinner then. At the end of a 2 hour, maybe 2.5 hour walking tour, I look down at their feet because they're, Chris, do you like our shoes? And there was they were called the Sneaky Seven, they called themselves. And there were 7 funny, very funny kids. Now I look at them, they've got to be 28, 29 now, so they're listening to this. How are you guys? And they're probably ready
I've got
to
all
go
their
on
numbers,
Koda Sail.
mate. I'm sending them this podcast straight away.
Well, they're mature enough to be a customer of mine now in Koda Sail because it's for young professionals aged 30 to 40. Anyway, the Sneaky Seven I've looked down, and while they were on the bus, they left their shoes and they got a marker and they drew in where the plastic or the rubber would be on your thongs, flip-flops, jandals, on the nose of their feet. And just to replicate, if I look down at a glance, they're wearing their shoes. So they went to that much trouble to try and fool me, but I thought the joke's on you idiots because it's now 10 o'clock and it's 400 degrees and you've got no shoes to walk through the rest of you got 8 more hours around Rome, and you've got to go into the Vatican City and the Colosseum. I don't think they're going to allow you in with no shoes. So I just, little things like that come to me, just random, like they're one-off, like silly things that happen. But yeah,
I think I know what you mean. I think, 150 trips or thereabouts. Some people might go on a trip and it might go for 7 days, and people remember that for many, 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 many years. But if you're living a life, that's just normal. Like that craziness of what happens on tour. People's in that holiday mode where some funny, unpredictable shit can happen almost every day, almost even by the hour. And you're like, it's just another day in the office. Like there's something about it.
That might have been a story I told that evening to another tour guide for a laugh, and then that was it. And I haven't really thought too much of it over the years. And just looking at you made me think of that time with those guys. But, now I look back, I hated that tour so much at the time. But it was probably one of the most rewarding tours. And I think, I'm pretty sure you'll agree with this. As our job, as fun as it is, if you really do it for the right reasons and you do enjoy taking people around to locations that, you get to go a billion times over, but it's their first time, super rewarding. And at the end of that 32 days with those kids, I say kids because I was 32 at that point, taking 18-year-olds around, I cried with them at the end. They were like, they presented me with a gift and got me in their huddle with their big chants and called me their, big daddy. And they actually genuinely thanked me for, putting up with their crap, but just showing them around Europe. And they knew that it was going to be good memories forever because they just had such a ball and they didn't die. And I remember crying with them going, wow, it was one of my first couple of trips, so it was so rewarding. And, they're the type of things that probably have kept me doing the job for so long is at the end of every tour, you've helped create a memory which is a holiday or a vacation for someone that it's always going to be in their back filing cabinet of that time they're there, and you were the person that helped.
And that's why I travel with you, mate, because your heart's in it. Many other tour guides might have different aspirations or motivations on why they want to become a trip leader. But right there, you touched on it. It's gold. There's something, if your heart's in it to give that experience back and to maximize it for people, I think that's where the gold is. Like that's that right there. If you got that, I think that's really that differentiation point between an excellent guide and someone who's tremendously high level.
I think that's one of the major things that to break off from working for someone else to start my own company was, I thought, wait, I actually really love this, and without blowing my own horn, like I'm pretty good at this, and I was getting great feedback and great reviews just about what I can do with a trip. And it's not just me. I have some great, amazing friends, tour guides with me that have been doing it for just as long. And why they're still in it is because they love, talking with people, connecting with people, and being part of their travel memories. So it's a job for life for me. Yeah.
And we can't do it at the moment. COVID has been
it's killed me, mate, for 2 years. Like, can you imagine loving something so much and it gets ripped away from you at no fault of your own? So
I'm yet to find an industry that's been greater impacted by than someone that's been an international tour guide or something related like that. I'm yet to find something that's been. We're the first to get the chop, and I think we'll be the last ones to return.
But a lot of my friends in the industry, we've just pivoted quite well, stayed motivated, can't wait to get back. But every single one of my mates that I chat to quite often are doing something interesting. Still, they've filled the 2 years up pretty well, and I'm going to have some even better stories to go back with once we can grab that microphone and say hello once again. I
am going to break down and cry when that happens. On day one, my guests won't even know me, and I'm just going to completely lose my shit.
It's crazy. I've imagined that moment a billion times already. Like, how amazing! Not only for me, but just to welcome a whole group and go, "You guys made it," and I've just, there will be tears. Yeah.
Oh yeah, I'm the same, mate, and I know a lot of people share that same mindset and that same sentiment. But Chris, mate, you're an awesome.
That was a great 20-minute chat there.
Was it? I don't even have the clock, so how about that? Mate, really appreciate you having you on here, sharing all your insights. If you are interested about Croatia and you really want to be on point with someone who's got all the connections there, and I know that having a tour with Chris, I couldn't do it because I'm a tour guide. I just critique. I can barely go on a tour myself anymore. But if you are never been on a guided trip before, and you're somewhat skeptical, sort of that first time, or even it repeats, you might be a bit of a seasoned traveller, mate, I know that you can offer a lot of value. So, mate, I really appreciate you having on.
Thank you. And I'll give a quick plug to we've got trips in Turkey, also an amazing country, and we're opening back up our trips to the Maldives as well. So we've got Croatia, Turkey, and Maldives, and you're welcome on all three of those.
Mate, there's 2 more podcasts right there. We'll see how we go in the future.
Load her up.
Cheers,
great
Chris.
Stuff. Good job, Benny.
Appreciate it, mate. Till next time.